Hi, everybody. It's Bill Knabb with Ink Labs. I'm the co-founder and the chief innovation officer with Ink Labs, and I have some really good friends of mine that are going to join us today for our first ever podcast, Tales from the Inkwell. So I can do a good job introducing them, or I can just kind of let them do it on their own. Kevin, why don't you take it away? Tell me who you are and what you're doing.
I'm Kevin Eberle, the building principal for Math Science Technology Preparatory School in the east side of Buffalo. I've been here for the last 3 years, transitioning a school that's been in a little predicament and having some rough edges to it. And we're really changing the culture and environment of the building. And it's easy to say that because we have an incredible staff here that is just on top of the game of really helping all of our students that are really struggling in the city of Buffalo.
Like spouses, Kevin, our teachers always make us look better, don't they?
That's for sure.
You got that right. All right, Rachel, tell me who you are.
Hi, I'm Rachel Carlson. I am a special education teacher here at MST. I've been here for 8 years, been through the good, the bad, and now luckily with Dr. Eberle, the great. I've been teaching science with some great co-teachers, and luckily this year with Tammy, my 3rd year teaching chemistry, co-teaching chemistry, we've been able to do some great things, even virtually.
Thank you, Rachel. Hey, Tammy.
And I am Tammy Furman-Schwab. This is my 9th year at MST, my 13th year in education. And I've been working for the last 3 years co-teaching with Rachel, and we've really been able to build a strong relationship. And now with virtual learning, really using the technology that we have to make virtual learning work really and make it something that we would like to continue in the future.
It's so I think back to when I was in the classroom and things have changed dramatically. To say that, I mean, it's got to be the understatement of the decade there. Things that I used to think were the most important things have kind of gone by the wayside now. So I want to take you back a little bit. March of last year, okay, and the news reports are out there. Everybody's getting a little nervous, a little scared of what's going on. And as educators, we know that we're frontline. So Kevin, I think it was like March 16th or 17th were the first major days that everybody said, okay, we're going to shut down for a little bit. From an administrative standpoint, what are you thinking when you hear that announcement last March?
I think collectively we were all sort of in disarray initially. We didn't really know what to expect. And certainly as it evolved over this past year, it got more clear, but it really was sort of like the Twilight Zone. We were there, we were charged with instantly going into a virtual world, really not having that background to that extreme. Fortunately, again, I'll go with having a staff that we have. They jumped right in with between the distribution of laptops, making sure all the students had the laptops, have all the connectivity. Our IT department in the district did a nice job in that to get most people connected.
Sure.
To the point where it all really came down to where, again, I'm spoiled as a principal of a school with the teachers that we have here, where they jumped right in. It was almost like, going to battle. It's like, okay, we're going forward. We're not moving back. What do we need to do? And we all come collectively together to really get an answer to the dilemma of how we educate these kids at least till June, figuring anyways. It was really an incredible dilemma, but again, I was fortunate. We had a great staff and administrative team. We put it all together, communicated with the parents and students, and to the point where we actually had a pretty decent, we almost hit 70% graduation rate even with this last year, so we were really excited about it. But again, it was one of those things. It was like you had to do what you had to do, and just we did it, and everybody came to the forefront, and it really did a phenomenal job with it.
So I'm trying
to a certain extent.
Oh, sure.
It was really just a certain extent that was really just face to face on a laptop, and the way that I think, anyways, is really sort of where we're going to the next phase of thinking, how do we really go into a true hybrid method? Right now it was all total virtual. So, we had we're limited in a lot of ways what we could do. So, yeah.
So Tammy and Rachel, I'm thinking about you guys, and you got to be thinking back in March, okay, Regents exams, different things like this. How are we going to be able to pull these things off? Were you reprioritizing at that time? Were you thinking, okay, let's just get through the next couple of weeks and see what we can do? Or were you really starting to put in place plans for what could have been a couple of weeks to a few months?
We just kept moving forward, I think. We just kept, oh, it looks like you were frozen. We just kept thinking that we have the Regents exams, they're going to go on. We just kept going like we were in school, but the fear was, how do we read these kids? I mean, we're in the classroom and you look at their faces, you look at their body language, and you can get a really good idea where students are at and look at their work that they're working on in the classroom. And how do you do that virtually? So that was my concern. I think that was our concern. And how are we reading students? We're going forward. We think there's Regents exams, but how do we get those formative assessments through not even seeing students or seeing their work?
Yeah, and that's the one thing you'll know if you work with Tammy. She's like a train. She keeps chugging along. There's no pause. So when we went virtual, it was, how do we get a hold of these kids? Where do we get online with them? What's the platform? How do we get them to come? So there was no pause. It was get on the phone. How do we get a hold of them? How do we get them to log on? And I think for me, that was, I mean, I'm always contacting my students anyway. Yep. So for anyone to fall through the cracks, it was because they didn't answer their phone. So was it because I didn't reach out?
Well, and we all get in education. I mean, there's a certain type of person who teaches, okay? And we're social by nature. So you gave that up in the sense that now things were going virtual. So tell me about that. Tell me about that critical interaction piece that you had. How did you look to continue that with your students?
So for me, I set in place specifically, went to our little, like, we have this platform called Schoology in our school, and I set to reach out to our staff to say, let's put together a fund for whoever you have coming online and attending classes. Let's put together a, what did I even call it? I can't remember. These care packages for the students.
Okay.
So every week I would send out 4 care packages, and the teachers would nominate students who were coming online. So, and the teachers would Venmo, and we put together like the old Sunshine Fund, but it was really for students. Because that's the crazy person I am, because here we were seeing them face to face, always, you know, providing them that love and support, but now we weren't seeing them face to face. They still needed to know we love them.
Sure. Kevin, Kevin, when you're seeing professional development and training and things like that, I mean, you think back to the things that we have been training on for years past, and the game completely changed. So what, from your perspective, from an administrative standpoint, were you looking to standardize on stuff? Were you saying to your teachers, hey, whatever works best for you guys, take it? Or what was your style, and how was that received by your teachers?
Well, I think Rachel and Tammy can attest to this, and most in the building can attest to what my style is. And my whole entire career, I mean, literally going back even to my police days 40 years ago, has always been based on helping everybody else. And so what my whole mantra is, what do you need? Well, what do the teachers need? Let me support you. Keep everybody to the point where they know that they have the support with us in any way, shape, or form. Use their ideas and listen and take notes from them of what they were doing. I know we have master teachers here that know the content, know the things to get the kids through.
Sure.
how you do that in a virtual world, in a hybrid world, and in this case, it's totally virtual. It wasn't even hybrid. I was confident in that. So I'm sort of the maestro. I'm not really playing the instrument. I sort of just am the leader and let them play, and they're masterful. We're better than the Philharmonic, and I think that's what you really need, and it's all based on relationships.
Yeah.
So it's really to the point where everybody knows Rachel. I appreciate Rachel, and I joke because in the virtual world, it actually brought a lot of stuff closer in some ways, because we could get on as a whole collective group of teachers and talk about something like, hey, we need to have a faculty meeting and let's just get on virtually. I'd like to have it as a bigger screen and see more people and everything. Just a small, I have 2 screens right now in my office, but it's that type communications was actually pretty vital for us to actually be on where they could get on and talk between Teams and Microsoft or Zoom. We could have instant conversations where that's tough in a whole school setting to actually have that. So the technology actually was a benefit in many ways, but still it all came down to the priority. The priority was relationships between the teachers and students and between administration and teachers, and bringing the parents in on top of the whole thing to try to get them all on. So the all over encompassing systems thinking we think about, it's all about people and relationships.
Yeah, and I think the parent engagement was critical in this piece too. I mean, I think not that parents ever stood by the sidelines and just watched things happen, but if you weren't engaged now, you were needed. This is when we needed it. All right, so one-to-one initiatives, the kids are having devices, they're taking them home. Bandwidth issues are out there. We all understand the connectivity can be an impediment to this too. But what was working? I mean, what looking back at this over the course of the past year, can any of you kind of pinpoint something and say, you know what, that really worked well? We enjoyed that.
Well, having routines for the students worked well, so they knew what to expect as far as assignments, because it was such an upheaval of what they were used to. Suddenly from the computer. So good morning.
Sorry.
It's fine, that happens.
We do. So if we could just put a routine together for the students, we found that to be very helpful, and they responded to having that routine. Then we found that as we did that, we were getting more participation, we were getting more assignments handed in. And
Specifically Castle Learning, like when we came back this year, when we put up Castle Learning, like more of the kids did Castle Learning than they did any other assignment, because they were used to doing Castle Learnings every week. So
And that probably just became it was more like a mechanism where it was a necessity, right? And because as far as getting assignments back and forth and making those things happen, you're you always wanted to be able to do things like that. And Kevin, I imagine as an administrator, you knew the tools that were out there and you wanted to see them being used more, but this made it critical.
It was interesting. What Rachel is saying was very critical in the beginning, especially that unknown in the beginning. That was at least a framework. Castle Learning was very good. The Schoology platform that we already knew that our teachers were familiar with, it was an actual good tool to actually have the platform to communicate with the students. And we were fortunate because we definitely have a tech savvy staff that knew all of that. They were already using all those things. An example, we have an incredible math department. We have a husband and wife team there, just probably the 2 top algebra geometry teachers probably in the district. They didn't miss a beat. I mean, they were doing their graphic calculators virtually on the screen. I'd go into his room and see some different things. So that tech savvy part was good. But again, even with that, it was like we had a few things in place that I think it was where we had some success. We had some actually very good success in the beginning, which sort of turned a little bit when it came into the full year coming to September. Because you have a whole 9th grade class coming in from 8th grade that didn't know the teachers, didn't know the faces. It's a whole other dynamic that's been frustrating this whole year.
So we're touched on a little bit on the things that worked okay. The routines were good. Castle Learning was good. Being able to have a clearer path or on a day-to-day basis, knowing what the students were going to be doing. Let's go the other way. What didn't work that well? I mean, I can imagine we could write a novel on the things that could be improved. So what, I mean, what were the things looking back at it right now? If you said, okay, if we would have known, you know, the duration of it or whatever, what didn't work that well?
I think from the start, it would have been nice to have teams right from the start and transition into this year. Because last year we were working with Zoom as we left, and we actually kind of left and were left with, how do we meet the kids? Like, where do we go? We left on a Tuesday, and I think I was FaceTiming on my phone with children and trying to figure out, when do I meet with them? Like, do I meet with them on their regular schedule? Do I try, like, I was meeting with some of my kids like at 8 o'clock at night. I was like, no, this doesn't work. Like, we have to have some sense of the school day. But like, if we would have had teams in March, it seems like this going into the school year would have been smoother.
Mhm.
But we had Zoom, and then we had life size, and you know, it just was kind of a.
So have you guys kind of standardized on a streaming platform now?
Yes, we use Teams.
Okay, and it's now, so I can imagine from a teacher's perspective, that must have been much easier. But I also got to think too, Kevin, from a parent's perspective, to be able to know, because the parents must have been jumping around too, saying, okay, are we doing Google Meet over here? Are we doing Zoom over here? Are we doing Teams over here? So we expected parents to become experts in these streaming platforms as well. So the standardization on one streaming platform must have been a huge relief for the parents as well. Did you guys hear that?
You know, I think the parent piece, I can ask Tammy on this one as far as what her reaction with her students and some of the parents. Yeah, there was some frustration with that. It was more of the technology piece of it, the hotspots and the different things that are going on. Once we got into standardization, it definitely was a big piece. But from last March, no question about it, that was all over the place. I think the other tough part of it, and correct me, ladies, if I'm off on this, but the downside of the virtual piece is most students don't want to come on screen. So you have a teacher that is teaching their tail off and doing all the things that Tammy and Rachel are saying, that you have the standardized instruction, you have all of the routines in place, all the things you have in a regular classroom, but you're looking at a screen with a bunch of dots. And psychologically for a teacher, you know, even though they know they're getting it out there, you really don't know. The ones that have been off the grid the whole year, you know, trying to struggle right all the way to June to try to get that, those were some major impediments on it. I think psychologically, just on, again, with me being the personal person, the communicator and the relationship builder, that to me, I think is probably the most frustrating piece. And one of the biggest frustrating things for a teacher's venue in their classroom. I don't know, Tammy, am I close to being right?
That's exactly what I wanted to say is looking at, sometimes they'll put their picture up or you can see the initials, but not seeing the students, especially students that you haven't met. That, as well as, again, you're not seeing their work in real time. You know, you're seeing their assignments after they do them, but you're not, as they're working through something, especially, you know, chemistry, we do a lot of math.
Yeah.
You can't see that process that they're going through. That makes it very, very difficult. And then for me, just on a daily basis, just the sitting in front of my computer, going from somebody who never sat down. I mean, the kids would say to me if I sat down, "Are you okay?" to somebody now who is sitting in front of my computer all day, and they're not really getting a picture of us either, just sitting and looking at our face in front of my computer.
Well, and that's what I was wondering. So I'm looking at the two of you right now. So if you guys are co-teaching or team teaching or things like that, is this? Listen, we have all been through so many streaming sessions where it's Kevin sitting at his desk with the diplomas in the background. It's me taking everything off of my wall so people can focus exclusively on this, which has its limitations, of course. But then I'm looking at you guys and I'm thinking, okay, well, now I see both of you side by side. So I'm thinking about what a student is going through and the boredom. I mean, they must have been going out of their minds just looking at that, okay, teacher view, computer view, teacher view, computer view. So how were you able to change that up a little bit? Or what were you guys able to do in your room that changed that dynamic?
Are you talking about with this device we have now? Because this has been huge for us as a co-teaching team, because now they see us as a team.
Well,
And
yeah, so tell me about that a little bit. So I mean, the two of you have been sitting there at the desk teaching, and I can see between them, when one of you is talking, the other one's talking, and fine. I got you both in that screen. So if I'm a student right now and I'm watching you guys teach, I have a different background, and that's good. But what else, how has your instruction changed now in this virtual environment?
Well, I can say for one though, because when we were separate and on my computer, and I would be in my room and she would be in her room, and I know you're talking like background, but when you see me like I would be on your computer, it's separate. You don't see us as team teachers.
Right.
I mean, when old times, prior to March, prior to pandemic, you could have walked in our room and you probably wouldn't know who was the chemistry teacher and who was the co-teacher, because cohesively, we would have been in the room, each teaching the content. Now, when we're next to each other and the students who have never taken or maybe have never met me know that we're both teaching chemistry.
Okay.
Because that's one concept that I think we always try to bridge. And so it's one concept we bridge virtually that makes them see there are two teachers and we both know chemistry. But I think
it makes it easier also when we're together, when I'm talking about something and Rachel knows she can clarify it.
Sure.
If I'm in the same room, like she'll have to we had to have talks separately and say, listen, I need to talk here. Where now I can look at her body language, she can give me a little line and say, okay, now I want to clarify that concept. So
well, I think it must have been the teachers that are out there that are looking at a laptop and a webcam sitting at the room at a desk. They're on an island by themselves, and it just must have been a lonely place to be. And so I'm thinking, if you guys ever had the chance to be there and co-teach, what a difference it must have made. So, all right. So I'm learning about chemistry.
Let me add something to this here, Bill. This is a huge piece what the two ladies are talking about here, because you're talking two veteran teachers, and to really talk about special needs students or special ed classrooms, integrated co-teaching classrooms, the virtual world separated out where kids knew hey, I'm in this group over here, I'm in this group over here, go, because Miss Carlson's over on this screen here, or I got to help that. It was very difficult, and I think this is across the country. No one really wants to talk about it, but it's true, and it's valid that you're to modify the instruction. They're supposed to get the same instruction. So you have Tammy is supposed to be, okay, quote, the gen ed teacher, and Rachel, the special ed teacher. As a true co-teaching model, you're right. You're supposed to go into the classroom and see exactly what they do, and it's seamless. So you get to learn the content, you actually understand it, and the students are not differentiated, and you're basically helping the ones that actually need the extra help because they're identified with an IEP. Right. And then in the venue of a full screen, full view of both of them with the experiment table in front of the table, as you can see right now with Tammy and Rachel, it really is something that has to be addressed long term. And going into the future, I know you're going to be talking about in a few minutes as far as what's the future hold for this. That's why I'm saying there are some good things to it. There were some very poor things to it as far as screen to screen, but now with this idea of getting into a full view and different things that we're doing, it's just spectacular for so many different reasons. So, but it's a huge thing. The special ed area, I think, is a major concern in the virtual world, that I think there was a lot lost because of it. And these guys didn't miss a beat. Even with the single screens, they didn't miss a beat, because I'd walk into each one of Rachel's room, she'd be working at it. I mean, it's like, it was amazing. But again, that's just not the case across the board, across the country, but it definitely is huge. The special ed piece is a huge part of this.
So is education ever going to go back to normal? Whatever normal is, do we go back to normal from this?
I hope not. I hope there's a way
Yeah,
that
I agree.
can infuse virtual learning and in-class learning, especially give students choices, student choice, and have them along with their parents, decide how they would like to have their instruction given to them. And whether it's all in person, whether it's all virtual, or whether it's some kind of hybrid model, I would like to see that in the future.
Kevin, how about you? Are we ever going to go back to normal, or is there a new normal here?
Well, I hate the term or the cliche of the new normal because I don't think it's ever been normal. I said we have a 120-year-old system that's been archaic all the way through from the 1900 agricultural system where it was just a single room schoolhouse based on farms. That's why we go from September to June, get the crops ready. And unless you're out in Eden or out in Farnham, you're not going to be doing too many crops here in the city, even though we put some nice urban farms. So to me, in a weird implosion of a pandemic, it really has, it is an opportunity for us to implode the whole educational system to actually use both worlds. We have had students absolutely thrive in the virtual world that would have been in trouble from bullying or being, bullying someone else or different arguments and drama. I mean, I know Rachel and Tammy will agree with this. I mean, we've had some incredible stories of the virtual world. So this idea that everybody says, oh, we just got to get all the kids back into the school, get them back in the school, bricks and mortar wasn't effective when they were all here anyways. I mean, there were a lot of kids that didn't graduate. There were a lot of kids that didn't go through they just going through the motions because they had the physical come into a building. This actually has brought them into focus, and really concentrate on actually, I think even deeper relationships in many cases where, as Rachel's saying, I mean, she's talking to people at 8 o'clock at night in some cases in the beginning there, and we're running all over the city trying to hunt them down. So I'm with Tammy and Rachel, definitely. I hope that we get rid of the term normal and say, no, this is a brave new world now. We have something here that I think is incredible for the masses and not just again, as you say, the normalcy of it all, like, well, this is what schools are supposed to be. You go from kindergarten to 12th grade, you go to college, go get married, you have a house and a white picket fence and live happily ever after. It's absurd. I mean, it's just not what society is. And I think it took a pandemic to really bring it all into focus.
We talk a lot of times that education changes at a glacier's pace. And it has been rocked on its ear. But we get up, we dust ourselves off, and we go to work and we try to fix it. Rachel, how about you? Any idea of what the new normal is going to look like for you?
A lot of things on the head. So the glacier's pace, I'm sorry, I'm an environmental teacher as well. The glaciers are rapidly disappearing, the global warming. So this revolution is coming fast. As history tells us, when a pandemic comes, usually a revolution follows.
There you go.
So I guess normal is not returning. The other things, as I was just thinking when you were speaking, is that this is a great opportunity to empower and give advocacy to our students. And I guess this is the special ed teacher in me as well, is to give a voice to our students. And so the new normal is to say, here, students, this is your time to voice what you want to do. Like, how has this time, changed you? What are you interested in learning? How are you interested in learning? And so I think even as I go back to how we were talking about how we didn't see students on the screen,
sure.
One of the things I worked in as a teacher of a small class, 1211, 611, is saying every Friday is Fun Friday. Fun Friday is Show Your Face Friday. And so I could just see them, because my whole thing is, I need to see your face. My face needs to see your face. And so Fridays were all about, even if it's for 5 minutes, 2 minutes, let me just see you. And my aide, Ms. Patrick Dennis, was so empowered to do that as well. She has a great relationship with the students and just interacting that way. So that empowerment and advocacy in that voice for our students, is the new normal, I think.
I think that's great. So it kind of brings me to our conclusion now. Fast forward 20 years into the future now. somebody's going to come up to you, your kids are going to come to your nieces, nephews, whatever. Somebody's going to come up to you and say, wow, in the year 2020, year 2021, you were a teacher, you were an educator, you were an administrator. What was it like being in education during the pandemic? What would you tell them?
I would say it was a very difficult time, but from that difficult time, it made us stronger and gave us new ideas. And I think we will have innovation from the pandemic. I think a lot of new things are going to come from this, a lot of great things, and some change, well-needed change.
That would be great. Rachel, how about you?
The only word that comes to mind is it was a very musical time for me. I teach science through music, so maybe in the next few years we'll have my first demo of learning science through music.
That's a whole nother podcast right there. I would love to learn about that one. That's fantastic, Rachel. Kevin, from an administrative standpoint, 20 years down the road, what was it like to be an administrator during the pandemic?
I actually use a quote of my father, who God rest his soul for 20 years. He used to always say, and I've said this to some of the teachers, they've heard one-liners from me. It says, he used to always say, the vicissitudes in life are what carve the future. And vicissitudes, if people don't know the word vicissitudes, it's the actual low points in people's lives that make them stronger to actually build up. I mean, I've got an incredible lifeline as far as the ups and downs in life, and all the lower points are the ones that really carved my fortitude to actually move on to greater times. And I think those low points during 20 years from now, and we were saying, hey, remember back in 2021, yeah, it was a low point in American history and in a pandemic world history, but it really showed humanity and actually showed the human spirit and actually showed exactly the knowledge that we actually have and the intelligence we have as human beings to say, hey, we can get through this. And we were all here for, a reason to actually educate the future generation. And we did a pretty good job at it. I'm hoping that's what we're going to be saying 20 years from now. And I think we can. I think we can say that we're doing it, even with the impediments that you hear, all the different negative talk about, we're just sort of skating through it. It doesn't matter. Life goes on. We have to give the foundation for these students, no matter what we're in, for the future, because they are the future generation. Take care of us when we're old, and I'll be real old then. So
I guess that's the thing, is we can't give up.
Right.
We have to keep moving forward with it. So it's here we go. Well, guys, I will tell you, I've enjoyed this tremendously. Kevin, you got some rock stars there. You know that, and you're one of them as well. Tammy, Rachel, Kevin, thank you very much. Thank you from Ink Labs. These are tales from our ink well, and we'll be doing podcasts like this again. I appreciate your time. Any questions or comments for us, visit us at inklabs.us, and we'll be happy to work with you again. Take care, everybody.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.